So WrestleMania 37 Night 2 has just gone off the air, and well, it was certainly interesting. I think if you compare this to WrestleMania 37 Night 1, I don't think it's close. To be honest, I don't think it's close. I think WrestleMania 37 Night 1 was by far the better night, and I know people will say, "Oh, you can't compare both." You can compare both, and it wasn't. There was until we got to the main event really tonight. There was some good matches on there, but until we got to the main event, it just wasn't close. It just wasn't close at all in terms of quality. And what we'll do in this stream, this is the post-show reaction stream for WrestleMania 37 Night 2. Again, I don't really like to do reviews, or I don't like to give things stars, all that kind of thing. That's not really my deal. What I do like to do though here on the channel is express opinions, interact with you guys. So if you want to share your opinions on the show, on matches, be sure to get involved in the live chat. If you want to contribute to the channel, you can do so by clicking the super chat function. Just click the $sign. Contribute to the channel. We'll read your message out. We'll make it a discussion point. If you are new to the channel as well, be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Really appreciate everyone that has subscribed over the course of the last few days. Also as well, if you are new to the channel, or you enjoyed WrestleMania 37 Night 2, or if you enjoy this kind of stream, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Darkness is already in the stream, and he said, they said WWE sucks, AW better, Raymond trash, Raymond trash. Mick Thompson says Raymond sucks, he should have lost the Universal title. No one had to keep it. Look, we'll get into Raymond Reigns. We'll get into the main event, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I really enjoyed the main event. I thought the main event was excellent. We'll get into the other matches on the show as well, because I know it certainly has divided opinion on social media. Well, not really divided opinion. I think everyone's probably actually in a bit of agreement as to this show this night too. So let's get into overall opinions first before we get into matches as well, because we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to get in here and join us. Look, night 1 was spectacular. I really enjoyed night 1 of WrestleMania 37. I think every single match, apart from maybe the tag team turmoil, was excellent, and I heavily praised it last night, because not only was the show good, and not only was the matches good, but the outcomes all made sense. They all had logical outcomes. Every single match got a really good amount of time, I felt. Nothing too long, nothing too short. If anything, I felt part of the problem with the tag team turmoil matches that actually went on a little bit too long, if I'm going to be honest. This show tonight, I'm looking at some of the times, and we'll touch on this when we share our opinions on the matches. But some of the matches got cut unbelievably short, and some just went strangely so long. And there was a lot to real nitpick here tonight. There was a lot to nitpick, and there was a lot that just didn't work. There was just a lot that didn't work, and I think people are disappointed because when you compared the two nights going into it, I think a lot of people thought that night 2 was going to be the big night. And night 2, considering how these things work, it's WrestleMania Sunday, you would have thought that night 2 would have been the big one. And if it wasn't for that main event, wouldn't have delivered. Really wouldn't have delivered. So let's get into the matches. And let's talk about it. So the show started off with Randy Orton versus The Fiend. Now, I must state that that version of The Fiend that you can see on the screen no longer exists, because Randy Orton, before The Fiend made his entrance, and Darkness has done a super chat, 1992 super chat. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate your support. You can join them by doing a super chat. Click the $sign. Before The Fiend entered his match with Randy Orton, we saw a transformation, if you will call it, where this burnt, charred up version of The Fiend was transformed into the old version of The Fiend, a kind of more modern version, so we say, of The Fiend. That the mask, whilst the design was whilst the design was the same, rather, it was definitely slicker. It looked a bit fresher, the mask, and he was wearing a bit of a sort of shield flat jacket kind of situation. So there's a transformed version of The Fiend, and the entrance was fantastic. You had Alexa Bliss come out, and there was the big jack in the box she's been using on Raw. She's turning the handle, that kind of stuff. And then The Fiend pops out. The crowd are popping because it's a great entrance. It's a fantastic entrance. That entrance was badass. And the crowd is popping. They're going crazy. We've had this long storyline about the Fiend being burnt, and then is he going to come back? He comes back, but he's the burnt version. Now he's transformed himself. He's been reborn. All that kind of stuff. Great. Loved it. Loved that. And then the match starts, and then the bell rings. And first of all, my initial reaction, I must have said this a million times during the watch along, but they go back to the red lights. That red light of doom that is just, it's never worked. That red light that they insist on and having in the Fiend matches, it never works. It never has. It never will. It doesn't work. It does not work. Every single time they've had that red light, the matches have suffered because I think, the crowd can still see what's going on in the ring, but they don't like it and they struggle to interact with it, and it does make it a little bit more difficult to see, and it does take some of the feeling out of it. It just didn't. As soon as they put the red light on, as soon as they had the red light on that match, the match already starts to drop. And I think that's partially part of the problem from the outgo as to why the crowd wasn't reacting as positively straight away, because the red light, it just makes it difficult. The red light makes it difficult. So they're having the match, and look, the match lasted under 6 minutes. The match lasted 5 minutes and 50 seconds, which says everything about that match. That in terms of having a match, yeah, the match wasn't good. The match wasn't good, and I can't, even as a fan of The Fiend and as a fan of the storyline, the match wasn't good, considering the time that was invested into this story, considering the time that was invested into this feud, and that we've waited so long to see the Fiend being burnt and then coming back and then being transformed. You would have expected the match to go last longer than 5 minutes and 50 seconds. And it would have been okay. 5 minutes and 50 seconds is fine as long as the Fiend destroys Randy Orton. 5 minutes and 50 seconds is fine as long as Fiend just absolutely brutalizes Randy Orton, and that's it. But that wasn't what happened. So the Fiend is doing most of the offense. He's doing his stuff, and then next thing you know, you hear fire shoots out of the ring posts, and then what happens after that? Fire shoots out of the ring post, and then suddenly Bray Wyatt turns, the Fiend turns, and he sees Alexa Bliss. She's now changed her outfit, and she's sitting on top of the box, but she's got the black goo, the same black goo that we saw sort of dripping down the head, the same black goo we saw dripping down, coming out of the mouth rather of Randy Orton. It's now dripping down her head, and the Fiend looks confused. He doesn't know what's going on. He's baffled by it. He's staring at her. And then he turns around and bang, he just eats an RKO from Randy Orton. Randy Orton gets the shock victory. So Randy Orton defeats the Fiend. Now, what was that? What was that? That's very confusing. Very, very confusing as to what that is. Is that Alexa Bliss turning on the Fiend? Is that Alexa Bliss? I don't know why she would turn on the Fiend, considering she resurrected him, unless she's got a feeling that he abandoned her. I don't know. That, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. That to me really doesn't make a lot of sense as to why she would turn on him, but that's what it felt like. It felt like a heel turn, but is Alexa Bliss aligned with Randy Orton? I don't think so. I don't know. And then suddenly, the Fiend and Alexa Bliss, they're facing off. The lights go out, they come back on, they're gone. Now, the crowd booed that, and I think the crowd booed that because that whole disappearing act, the crowd always boos it. They used to hate when anyone did that. They used to hate when The Undertaker did it, when he would show up, light goes off, he disappears. People hate that because you do feel kind of robbed. You do want to see some form of interaction, and the whole lights out and disappearing thing just feels a bit like a cop-out, to be honest. So that's understandable why people don't like that. I think that's why they were booing with that. As far as the ending goes, I don't necessarily have a massive problem with the story. And I know this, I'm probably in the minority there. I don't necessarily have a problem with the story. I think that the fact that we're asking questions, the fact that we're saying, okay, what happens next? What does this mean for the Fiend? Are the Fiend and Alexa Bliss now together? Has Alexa Bliss turned on the Fiend? What did that symbolize? Those kind of questions are good. Because once you're asking questions and once you're trying to figure things out, you're emotionally invested in the storyline. I don't have a problem with the finish. I don't have a problem with the story that's being told. What I do have a problem with is that the match wasn't good, and it's kind of becoming a bit of a common occurrence with the Fiend now that his matches aren't great, and you kind of have to balance up, well, what's important? Is the story important or is the match important? And I think in pro wrestling it's a hybrid of both. but his matches haven't been great. That's a problem with the Fiend character. How do you book someone that's so dominant and so supernatural? They can't find that balance yet. Like I said, didn't have a problem with the finish. Have a massive problem with the red lights because I thought we'd got past that. Every time he's been in the red light, the match has been bad. Every time that he's been out of it, the matches have been all right most of the time. I didn't have a problem with that at all. It was odd. That ending was odd, but again, I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with the match lasting under 6 minutes. I have a problem with that considering how long was invested into this storyline in terms of time and how long they stretched it out. I would assume this is probably the end of the Randy Orton Fiend element of this, unless, as I mentioned, Alexa Bliss is with Randy Orton now. I don't know. I really don't know that. That was odd, and I can understand why people didn't like it. It was an odd place. It was an odd place to put it as well. Why would you open a show with that? Why wouldn't you open the show with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, right? Open the show with that. Give them time. Crowd goes home happy. There's a bit of build to that. It just was an odd. It was an odd place to put this match as well. Why open the show with it? And it was so short. I understand the presentation of wanting to have the Fiend have a big entrance. I understand that part of it. And again, I don't necessarily have a problem with the finish. I don't have a problem with that because I think if you're asking questions, I think if you're trying to figure out the next steps, that's not a bad thing because you're emotionally invested in the storyline. What I have a problem with is investing all of this time into it lasting under 6 minutes. What I have a problem with is being back of having the red lights again, because the red lights are just difficult to watch on television. It takes the energy out of the crowd, and the match, it wasn't good. The match wasn't good, and I think that's part of the problem. The match wasn't good. The match was short. It was a weird presentation. It was a weird placement on the card, and it made the match really. It made the show start off on a really weird foot. It made the show start off on a really weird foot, and it just wasn't necessary. I don't think that way, but. We'll have to wait and see where it goes. We'll have to wait and see where it goes in terms of Monday Night Raw tomorrow. I guess we'll find out more. It's certainly interesting. But if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner. Really appreciate everyone that's joining us right now. If you enjoyed, I was going to say if you enjoyed WrestleMania, smash a like on the like button, but I don't know if that would necessarily be a good thing. If you enjoyed the WrestleMania weekend, smash a like on the like button. Like I said, if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Super chats are open as well. You can click the $, contribute to the channel. We'll read out your comments on the screen as well, make it a discussion point. So we've just talked about The Fiend and Randy Orton. What I do want to talk about as well before we move on to the next match was Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil were the host, because Hulk Hogan was loudly booed every time he spoke, and every time he was on the microphone, he was loudly booed, so much so that they had to audibly, pipe in some noises to try and cover it up, because he was being booed that loudly. He really was. So that was certainly something. So let's move on. Let's talk about the second match of the show. I've got so much to say on this one. Second match of the show was the Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, where do you start with this one? Where do you start with this one? I was saying so much going into the show. I said this time and time again, that why on earth did they book this match? No disrespect to anyone involved in this one. This isn't a WrestleMania match. This isn't a WrestleMania match. It's not, And what's shocking about this, and this is crazy because I've got the times, I've got the match times in front of me. This was the second longest match on the show. The match that was given the second most amount of time was Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler versus Natalya and Tamina. This match was given 14 minutes and 20 seconds. How insane is that? The only match that was given longer was the main event. So the second longest match on this show was the Women's Tag Team Championship match. What? That's crazy. That's crazy. And I saw a lot of people complaining, going, the match wasn't great. Well, what did you expect? This match is not out of place on a random episode of Raw or on a random episode of Main Event. It really isn't. So I was shocked by that. I was absolutely shocked by that. I really was shocked that this match was given so much time. And Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax get the victory. There was a couple of points where Natalya and Tamina had some close calls. It just, again, considering that the first match, and this is what was crazy, considering the first match doesn't even go 6 minutes, so you cut that match really short, and I guess that was because of the angle. Surely that doesn't mean that this match should be given nearly 15 minutes, and the next match, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, didn't even go 10 minutes. What? That's crazy. That's absolute crazy. I didn't get that. I didn't get that. So Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler retain. Again, I don't have much to say about it apart from it was really long. It was really, really long. And that just felt very, very strange. So we'll move on to the next match in a second. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner, we post daily videos talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. If you enjoyed WrestleMania weekend, smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Get the rankings, get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. And of course, super chats are open. I can see a lot of chats in the live chat. If you want to voice your opinion on Roman Reigns and Edge and the main event, you can do that by clicking the super chat. We'll read out super chats. We'll get some people's opinion on Raymond Reigns and should he or shouldn't he won. Don't worry, we'll be talking about that as we go on in the stream. So let's move on to the next match. Let's talk about Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. Now this one was look, Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens is always going to be a good match. Always going to be a good match, no doubt about it. Always going to be fantastic because they have great chemistry. They've done this so many times. It's always going to be a fantastic match. And was it the best match they've ever had? No, I don't think it's the best match they've ever had. But frankly, they weren't given enough time. When you're given less than 10 minutes and it's on WrestleMania, and they were cutting to Logan Paul, who of course was there as Sami Zayn's guest time and time again. And it was all about Logan Paul, which is a shame because they deserve more. So they did a nice callback in the closing moments of this, whereby when they had their match in 2016, when was it? Was it Battleground or Payback? You can let me know in the live chat. They basically had the finish where it was 2 haluva kicks and Sami Zayn sort of grabbed Kevin Owens' head and said, you did this to yourself, that kind of thing. So they played that back and it looked like Sami Zayn was going to do that again. Kevin Owens gets out of it and Kevin Owens essentially does the same thing to him, but with a stunner, gets the stunner and he gets the victory. That was the match. But again, it was good. It was good. It's not the best Kevin Owens Sami Zayn match ever. And again, that's no disrespect to them at all. Because they're phenomenal together and they're phenomenal workers. But the issue there was that they just weren't given enough time. And that was it. But what was cool was after the match, Logan Paul gets in the ring and he goes to shake Kevin Owens' hand. Sami Zayn's PO'd because his invited guest is shaking his arch enemy's hand or tries to shake his hand. He shoves Sami Zayn to the mat. Sami Zayn goes, "Oh, forget about it." He leaves, and then Logan Paul raises the arm of Kevin Owens, but in true Stone Cold Steve Austin fashion, Kevin Owens hits a stunner on Logan Paul, and I'm not a fan of Logan Paul. To be honest, I don't know who is, to be honest. But what I will say is that Logan Paul took a heck of a stunner. I mean, he literally broke his neck on that stunner. It was mad. He absolutely, completely took a massive bump off that stunner. That was crazy. So let's move on to the next match. United States Championship match between Sheamus and Riddle. So Sheamus defeated Riddle, and we have a new WWE United States Champion. This one, again, wasn't given a ton of time. Was given just over 10 minutes, just under 11 minutes. I enjoyed this one. I did enjoy this one. I thought it was really well done. I'm not a big fan of the whole Riddle character, if I'm going to be brutally honest. I was a fan of Matt Riddle in NXT. I'm a fan of Matt Riddle's matches. I thought the match tonight was good between Sheamus. Botches. There was botches in there, big ones. Riddle tried to get Sheamus up for the jackhammer. What's he call it? The bro hammer or whatever he calls it. It's a play on his rivalry, his social media rivalry with Goldberg, and it's a slight at Goldberg. That's the whole point of it. But the irony being is that he says Goldberg can only do a couple of moves and all that kind of stuff, which I don't disagree with. But he botched it. He botched the jackhammer, and it was you could tell he was annoyed by that. He was really annoyed by that. Sheamus though did his own botch. They were going to do a spot where Sheamus hits white noise from the top rope. And it just didn't work out. They didn't get the balance right. Sheamus had to go down. They changed it. Hits white noise, and then Sheamus hit. I think it was like a knee drop or something like that from the top rope. But the finish was good. The finish was really good by Sheamus. Basically, they did the almost the Ricochet and Adam Cole spot from NXT TakeOver a few years ago, where Riddle hits the ropes, does basically a springboard moonsault as he's in midair. Sheamus just hits the bro kick, nearly kicks the guy's head off, gets the victory. He's new United States champion. And what was great about this is it was so snug. It caused Riddle to bleed from the mouth, which made the visuals after the match really good. I actually enjoyed the visuals after the match because suddenly Riddle's serious, which is what he should be. And look, the comedy it's a miss for me, and it's too it's just not. It's not for me. It's not for me. But the match was great. Okay, a couple of botches for the time they were given. I thought they did a good job. I thought the bro kick finish was nice. Sheamus as United States champion. Look, Sheamus has been doing good work for the last year or so. Think of the matches he's had, and I wasn't a fan of the storyline, some of the storylines he's been involved in, but the matches, whether it's Jeff Hardy, whether it is Riddle, whether it's Drew McIntyre, he's been doing very good. He's been doing very good, and this is a guy, when it comes to Sheamus, you have to remember that a couple of years ago, there were rumors about him retiring because he's got spinal stenosis in his neck. There was concerns he had to retire. He was in the tag team with Cesaro. There was the feeling that he was in just tag team matches because he couldn't do singles matches anymore. I mean, we're talking about this now, and you would look at him now, the shape he's in. He's the United States champion now. He's been having some absolutely fantastic matches. And I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, and I know that some people do find him a bit dull and a bit boring. I get that, but you can't question the matches. And if those physical, hard-hitting matches are your thing, then I think, look, this is a good United States Championship feud. This is a good United States Championship feud. I enjoyed it. It was certainly the better of the mid-card title matches tonight. That's without question, in my opinion, because we'll move on to the next one in a second. That really just fell very, very flat for me. And that was the Nigerian drum fight for the Intercontinental Championship. So we have a new Intercontinental Champion because Apollo Crews defeated Big E, and this match lasted just under 7 minutes, 6 minutes 50 seconds, which is again really surprising. If you enjoy WrestleMania as well, because I see some new people joining, smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Super chats are open. If you want to send your message, let me know your thoughts about Raymond Reigns. We're going to touch on that. You can contribute through the dollar signs, very much appreciated on the channel. You can say your message about the Raymond Reigns, Edge, Daniel Bryan main event. We'll talk about that. We'll make it a discussion point as well. So let's talk about the Nigerian drum fight. Let's get through these last couple of matches, then we can get into the main event, because I think that's why everyone is here. Let's talk about the Intercontinental Championship, Nigerian drum fight. So we found out Nigerian drum fight is just no holds barred. Anything goes. You have to win by pinfall in the ring. That's it. They had some good spots. They had the Singapore cane, kendo stick shots, which were pretty brutal. You had a decent spot as well, the whole stairs on the outside, and Apollo Crews got basically dropped, Uranagi on the outside and all that kind of stuff. That was okay, and all that kind of stuff. But the finish, first of all, actually, before I go into the finish, when it comes to this, look, I didn't get it. I didn't get why Apollo Crews has a title shot, considering that he's lost 4 or 5 times to Big E. He's lost 1 million times to him on SmackDown. He's lost to him 1 million times on pay-per-view. He lost to him at Fastlane, and yet he constantly got opportunities. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Where is the logic in there? If this was MMA, if this was boxing, if you lost to someone once, you'd have to earn your way back to a title shot. If you lost to him several times, they would just say there's no point. There's no point. So it doesn't. That doesn't hold up. That doesn't hold up. Anyway, he gets the opportunity. And the closing moments of the match, Big E looks to have the match won. And then who comes out but Dabba Kato, the former Babatunde. Now, Dabba Kato, of course, was from Raw Underground. What was really frustrating with this when it came to Dabba Kato getting involved is Michael Cole on commentary and Corey Graves acted like they'd never seen this guy before. Never seen. Who's this guy? Who's this giant guy? We've never seen this guy before. He was on Raw only a couple of months ago. I know no one watches Monday Night Raw anymore. I get it. Why would you? It's 3 hours and it's boring. But everyone knows who Dabba Kato is at this point. But on commentary, who's this? Who's this? And it's sort of, it's this idea of, no one will remember that. That was months ago. You know that's what they're saying in the creative meetings. Oh, no one will remember that. Dabba Kato, Dabba who? No one remembers that. No one watches Raw. No one watched Raw Underground. We cancelled it. It's rubbish. No one remembers that. Well, you do. People have seen him before because you made a big deal about seeing this guy before. That's what. It's just that. It's like logic like that anyway. Stuff like that was just frustrating anyway. Who's this giant man? Who's this giant man? We know who it is. So Dabba Kato comes out and he's wearing what looks to be like a military sort of general's uniform. And he attacks Big E and it allows Apollo Crews to get the cover. And Apollo Crews is the new Intercontinental Champion. Look, this whole Nigerian storyline thing, I'm all for embracing the roots, and I'm all for Apollo Crews getting a gimmick that he can work with, and I'm all that Apollo Crews getting featured and getting airtime. I'm not a fan of the Nigerian accent, not because I don't like the Nigerian accent. I'm not a fan of the accent because I think it's a badly done accent. I think it's a bad accent. I'll be totally honest. I don't know if he's working with a dialect coach or whatever, but the accent just, if it was well done, it's like watching, say, Black Panther, right? When you watch Black Panther and the Wakandan accent, it's like sort of it's a play off the, what's it called, Tosa, that kind of language. It's a play off that, and they do it all really well. You would never know if wherever the actor comes from. Here, Apollo Crews, you can hear his American accent come through. It's just not well done. And people will say, that's heat. The fact you're angry at it, that's heat, because he's not meant to have a good accent because he is American. He's just being phony. It's like, no, you watch it and you can barely listen to it because you're like, oh, stop doing the stupid accent, honestly. So Dabba-Kato comes out, and this was my problem with this. My problem was not only is Dabba-Kato, everyone going, oh, who's he? But this gimmick, it reeks of 1980s WWE. It reeks of 1980s WWE. It reeks of something that you would see. It would be a Hulk Hogan opponent back in the 1980s. It would. And you can tell that by the people that are in charge. The people that are the head of creative for WWE at this point are Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard. They're the same people that were the head of creative, or they were in charge of WWE in the 1980s. Yes, I know George Scott was involved and all that kind of stuff, but they're the same people. That's the same, they were part of the same brain trust that was doing creative in the late 80s and the early 90s, and that's what this gimmick reeks of. Oh, he's embraced his roots. He's going to be a Nigerian heel, so what should he have? Well, he should have a Nigerian general to be his bodyguard. I mean, come on. We're in 2021 at this point. Can we get something at least a bit more modern? Can we get something at least a bit more progressive here? No, we're going to go back into just generic, cartoony 1980s. Oh, if he's Nigerian, that means he's going to have this general bodyguard, right? Because that's the stereotype. Come on, you can do something better. You have a team. You have this giant creative team. You have a team of writers from all different walks of life. Surely they're involved enough and they have their fingers enough on the pulse of society that they would go, this gimmick is just so old. This gimmick is so dated. A Nigerian general as a bodyguard? Are you kidding me? It's rubbish. It's rubbish. And, the match is difficult to grade. Not that I give grades, but it's difficult to grade because it just didn't go that long anyway. So we have a new Intercontinental champion. Next, the penultimate match was the Raw Women's Championship match. We have a new Raw Women's Champion. It's Rhea Ripley. She defeated Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. This was a really interesting one for me. I thought the match was good. I don't think it was of the level of Bianca Belair or Sasha Banks last night. I don't think it was close. I thought that match last night was absolutely fantastic. One of the better matches of the weekend, and that night one show just was so much better, wasn't it? That match, that whole show last night was really blew night two rather, of WrestleMania 37 out of the water. It just did. It was such a better show. I thought the match was okay. I thought at parts it was a bit slow, and I thought at parts of it felt like, I don't know if they've never faced off before. I'm assuming they haven't faced off before. And you could kind of tell that at certain points. I felt it. You could tell that it felt like a little bit, they were just out of sync a couple of times. It felt like they were a little bit out of sync. But when it comes to the overall win here for Rhea Ripley, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense in the sense that this reminds me of WrestleMania 21. And that was my biggest takeaway when it comes to the women's division this week, is that it reminds me of WrestleMania 21. You look at WrestleMania 21, it was really an elevation, wasn't it? It was an elevation of two faces of Raw and SmackDown for the male side of things at the time. You had John Cena win the WWE Championship. He becomes the face of SmackDown. He becomes the guy on that show. Then in the main event of WrestleMania 21, you had Batista defeat Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. He becomes the face of Raw, and then they go off. They go off and do their own things, and they become big stars. Now, I'm not saying that Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley are going to become, have the careers that John Cena or Batista had or anything like that. And I still think there's a really strong, impressive core to the women's division in WWE. But it's important to elevate new stars. You can't rely on the four horsewomen or Asuka or Ronda Rousey forever. And we've seen that over the course of the last year, that if Becky Lynch, if Charlotte Flair, if Ronda Rousey, if Sasha Banks, when she was away, if Bayley, if they're away, then they have trouble. So they need to keep creating new stars. And the irony is that WWE, for love and money, can't make a male star. They can't make a young male star. They just can't do it. But they're churning out. These female stars, and they know how to book them. Why can't you book the males like you're booking the females? So the match itself, like I said, I didn't think it was the best match maybe they could have had. I think they were given a decent amount of time, but Rhea Ripley getting the victory, I think, is the right call. And we'll see what happens when it comes to our Monday Night Raw. It's interesting when it comes to opponents because no Becky Lynch return. It was expected, and Bayley even came out for a segment with Titus O'Neil and Hulk Hogan, and I thought, right, here we go. This is the bit where Becky Lynch is going to return, and in the end, it was just the Bella Twins, and they gave Bayley a bit of a forearm and just threw her down the ramp, and that was it. That felt very odd. That felt very, very odd. But Rhea Ripley gets the victory, and I think that's the right call. And then finally, let's move on to the main event. That's why everyone is here. Roman Reigns, as you can see in the thumbnail, retains the WWE Universal Championship. He defeats Edge and Daniel Bryan to retain the gold. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. You can send super chats as well. If you send super chats, we'll read your message out on the screen. We'll make it a discussion point. If you enjoyed WrestleMania Week, smash a like on the like button. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner, we post daily videos talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we also do watch-alongs and live streams for major events, reaction streams, stuff like this. I really enjoy doing that, and we just enjoy expanding the community, getting people to share their opinions here on the channel. So the main event. This is what people have been talking about. This is the one that certainly has divided people and upset people. To start off, ultimately, I thought the main event was excellent, and it absolutely saved the show. There's no doubt about that. This main event saves the show. If it's not for this main event, you could say the second night of WrestleMania is a dud, to be honest. This was the match that everyone was looking forward to, and to say that it delivered, I think, is an understatement. I thought it was excellent. I thought every single competitor in this match absolutely nailed it. I thought some of the pacing was fantastic. It was a frenetic pace. It was a quick pace. They utilized that you had three men in there to keep the pace going at all times. The spots that they had were fantastic. The near falls they had was fantastic. The creativity, the innovation, whether it's Edge breaking off the chair and then using that as a crossface on Roman Reigns, and then Daniel Bryan locking in the yes lock on the other side of him. I thought that was great. I enjoyed that. Again, the near falls, whether it's spears on Daniel Bryan or whether it's spears on, for instance, Edge hits the spear on Roman Reigns and he's going to get the victory, and Daniel Bryan pulls the referee out the ring. All that kind of stuff was great, and certainly Edge now has an axe to grind against Daniel Bryan because he cost him the Universal Championship on several occasions, and going into this, Edge's gripe with Daniel Bryan was, you ruined it, and he can say that at WrestleMania, you ruined it, you took my opportunity. Now, I suppose the frustrating thing here is that the whole Jey Uso thing, that my criticism of that would be is that they've done that a few times now. And I said it on the watch along at the time. So Jey Uso at the start of the match does super kicks to Edge and super kicks to Bryan. Eventually they get him out of the match. Edge hits an Impaler DDT on the steel ring steps. Medical staff come out. They take Jey Uso to the back. And I said at the time, he'll come back. And the reason I said that is because they did that. They did the same finish at, was it TLC? They did the same finish at TLC, essentially, whereby Jey Uso gets involved, Kevin Owens gets rid of him, and you think, right, Jey Uso's gone. We're going to have this. Really interesting match, this real close match. And what happens at the end of the match? Jey Uso comes out again, and that's ultimately what costs them the match, because Roman Reigns is able to. So Edge hit a concerto on Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan's out, and we're thinking, right, there we go. Edge is going to win the match. He's going to go and hit the concerto onto Roman Reigns. And then suddenly Jey Uso comes back, even though he was stretched out or helped out earlier on. This distraction, Edge gets rid of him. This distraction allows Roman Reigns to hit the spear. Roman Reigns then hits the concerto on Edge, drags him over, and then pins both Edge and Daniel Bryan to retain the Universal Championship. So that was the finish. My problem with how they executed the finish was that they've done that before. I don't think that was original. I don't think that's worthy of a WrestleMania finish. I would question the creativity of that. If your finish to WrestleMania is, let's do the similar thing we did at TLC in December, that's not good enough. You know, WrestleMania deserves more. It's a bigger stage. It needs more than that. That would be a criticism I would have of that. Now, I know a lot of people are upset that Reigns won and he retained. Going into it, if you watch the match previews that I did on the channel, if you watch the watch-along that I did, I felt that this was always going to be the outcome. I always felt that Roman Reigns was going to retain, and I'll tell you why. Because first of all, he hasn't been defeated by anyone since he returned. I think when it comes to Edge, the reason I felt that Edge wouldn't win, and obviously there was reasons for Edge to win. You know, it was 10 years to the day that he had to retire and had to vacate the World Heavyweight Championship. That story is incredible, and that's a tough story to turn down from WWE. But the only reason I didn't think that Edge was going to win it, and I felt that Reigns was going to retain it in this match, was because you have to think about it from a logistical point of view when it comes to Edge, and you have to think about it from a contractual point of view when it comes to Edge. Do we know how many dates Edge has got in his contract? As far as I'm aware, Edge has a certain amount of dates on his contract. If that's the case, that makes it difficult for him to become Universal Champion. Not impossible, because Brock Lesnar has done the same thing. But then you think about it as Edge isn't Brock Lesnar, and he doesn't want to be Brock Lesnar. I don't think Edge, in all good faith, could be that champion of the person that shows up a couple of times in a year and does those matches. He's too proud to do that. He doesn't want to do that. Like he said, I don't want to come back for 5-minute matches, and I don't want to be a part-time champion, all that kind of stuff. And my feeling going into the match, though, was that, well, he has wrestled the Royal Rumble this year. He's wrestled the match from Raw. He's wrestled the match from SmackDown. He's going to have the WrestleMania match. Maybe he is going to be wrestling more frequently, and he has been on every pretty much episode of SmackDown or Raw or NXT since the Rumble, so maybe he will be, but it wasn't to be. It wasn't to be with Edge. And to be honest, I didn't really see Daniel Bryan winning. The only way I thought Bryan could win is that if they wanted to give this big, heartfelt moment at the end of the show, but that all changed when Edge came out, because in the build-up to this, Edge has really transitioned into a heel. You look at the events of Fastlane, he turned heel. He turned heel at Fastlane. And it didn't matter, because he came out tonight, and I mean, there's no doubt in my mind he got the reaction of the night. He got the biggest pop of the night. The crowd was firmly behind him. That entrance he made inside Raymond James Stadium was nuts. Was absolutely insane. The crowd loved him. The crowd absolutely loved him, and the crowd wanted Edge to win. And I did say this on the watch-along at the time. I did wonder, because I still felt that Reigns was going to retain. You did wonder at the time if there was some discussions backstage of saying, do we change this finish on the fly? Do we give Edge the gold? Because as I mentioned about Edge being a part-time champion or whatever, he wouldn't want to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean they couldn't have given him the title and then he drops it at Backlash in a couple of weeks' time. That's not out of the realm of possibility that they do Reigns and Edge there and then Reigns wins. They could have done that, but my response to the finish would be, and again, I know people were really upset by it, and I don't necessarily hate it. I'm going to be totally honest. I know it probably puts me in the minority. I don't necessarily hate the Reigns retaining. I think, to be honest, it probably makes a bit of sense. I didn't like the finish. I didn't like the finish. I felt that they could have done something more creative. I think everyone's obviously upset because they wanted to see the fairy tale story be completed, and I get that, and it really could have been a special WrestleMania moment. But wasn't Edge meant to be the heel in the match, and they kind of had to change it to a babyface? It was strange. I don't know if they really expected Edge to get that reaction, and it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if they would have changed their mind had there been fans going into this, and if there were fans going into this and they knew that Edge was getting reactions, would they have changed course, and would they have gone with Daniel Bryan being added in there? To be honest, I think Daniel Bryan being added into it actually really helped the match. I think it actually really upped the pace and it made it a fantastic match. This idea that Vince McMahon wanted to change it because he was concerned about Reigns getting cheered. Reigns didn't get cheered. Reigns got heat. And this is proving everyone right. For years when they said, Reigns needs to turn heel and all this kind of stuff, and there was a concern, maybe Reigns is such a good heel, he's going to get cheered. Didn't happen. Reigns got heat and he thrived in it. Reigns got the heat and he absolutely lived in it. He was talking smack to the crowd. They were booing him and he loved it. That's the best version of Roman Reigns. And I think, to be honest, this idea that Reigns is going to get so over as a heel, he's going to turn into a babyface, I don't see Reigns ever turn into a babyface. He's got mega heat at this point. He really does. He really does. So I understand why people were upset with the outcome of the main event. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Because they wanted to see that feel-good story with Edge. I just don't know if logistically it was possible. And to be honest, the indication that Edge wasn't going to get the title probably should have come when they made this into a triple threat match. The writing was on the wall then. There's reports that come out saying that Vince McMahon felt that Edge looked old, or he didn't know if he could hang with Roman Reigns, all that kind of stuff. That narrative, to be honest, is ludicrous. That, Edge is old. Yeah, he looks old. Are you kidding me? He's in his 40s, he's in mid-40s, he's in the shape of his life. Just because you've got grey in your beard and grey in your hair doesn't mean you're old. It's the same person that's put the Universal Championship on Goldberg twice, and he's got a white goatee as well, which they Photoshop brown all the time. And this is someone that pushed The Undertaker for years when he would look older and older every time he came back to television. People know Edge is in his 40s. What, because he's got grey in his beard, he can't be the Universal Champion? That's nuts. It's nuts. It's ridiculous notion from Vince McMahon, but it appears to be something to it, because when it was first reported by the likes of Meltzer and that, I thought that seems ridiculous. But then, Edge has been dyeing his beard and he has been dyeing his hair, so it would imply that maybe there's some weight to that one. There maybe is some weight to that one. I don't know. So like I said, when it comes to Reigns retaining, look, maybe I'm in the minority. I understand it. I understand why it's not a popular decision, and I get why fans feel it's disappointed, because that story of Edge winning would have been incredible. And you're not going to get a second opportunity at that. The whole, retiring 10 years ago to this day, and 10 years later you're in the main event of WrestleMania and he could have won the World Championship. That would have been incredible. But that wasn't the story that they were telling headed into this, unfortunately. That story changed when they started to add in Daniel Bryan and Edge turned heel. And I don't know what reaction WWE thought they were going to get. That's my feeling of it. I don't know what reaction they thought they were going to get. I don't know if they thought Reigns was going to get cheered, or Bryan was going to get cheered. I don't even know if they thought Edge was going. I don't know what they were thinking. But irrespective of the finish, which of course people will continue to talk about, and probably rightfully so, irrespective of the finish, this main event saved this show. It saved this show, and it was an excellent main event. It was a WrestleMania-worthy main event. It really was. It had that big WrestleMania feel to it. The crowd was buzzing. The crowd was into it. And you talk about recent WrestleMania events. In fairness to WWE, prior to the pandemic, those WrestleManias had become just excruciatingly long and just awful. They were so terrible to watch, because by the time you got in the 5th or 6th hour of it and you got to the main event, the crowd was tired. The crowd was tired and they didn't care anymore, and they just couldn't watch it. And if you're watching at home, you're like, when's this going to end? I'm so tired, I can't be doing with this, and all that kind of stuff. And it meant that some of the possibly great WrestleMania main events, just the crowd wasn't into them. And we know that with no crowd, we've seen it over the last 12 months, with no crowd, you ain't going to get anywhere. And with this 2-day format, it shortens the shows, and the crowd can get into it. And that's exactly what they did, because frankly, they sat through a pretty average show to get to this main event tonight, and it delivered. It had a big fight feel. There was electricity, and you just saw how influential a crowd can be. You really did, because what was a good match got taken up to a great match because the crowd was in there. That's why. So, really enjoyed the main event. I think, if you're going to say what was the best match of the weekend, despite the finish, I would probably say that the triple threat match. I would, even though that night 2 was the worst night and night 1 by far was better. Even though so, I did really enjoy that main event. The finish, again, I thought was weak. I did think was really weak. I felt they could have done better, and I understand why people are upset by that. But I get it, and it's a rare situation. Both champions retain the world titles going into it. I think that's happened at WrestleMania 34. Where Brock Lesnar and AJ Styles retain the championship. I'm trying to think of other times that's happened. It doesn't happen all that often. There's usually at least some title change. So to have both world champions retain it, that's pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. But let me know your thoughts in the live chat as well. Be sure to smash a like on the like button if you enjoyed WrestleMania weekend. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner as well. Let's do a quick subscriber check before we hang this up and see where we are in terms of subscribers right now. We're on 3,184, so let's see if we can get it to 3,200. That's only 16 subscribers to go, so we've got 104 people in the watching right now. So if we can get 16 subscribers, we can get to 3,200. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe, bottom right hand corner. We post daily videos talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. We also do watch-alongs for events like this, like WrestleMania. We'll be doing one for, what they're calling it, Backlash after, or what they're calling it, WrestleMania Backlash or whatever. We do watch-alongs for that, and we do reaction streams, stuff like this, and we do a ton of other stuff here on the channel. So be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let's see if we can get those 16 subscribers until 3,200. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming. Really appreciate everyone that's tuned in tonight. Hope everyone has enjoyed WrestleMania. It's 5 a.m. over here in the UK. This is the dedication you have to have as a pro wrestling fan over here in the UK. But enjoyed WrestleMania overall. Second night too. Again, really disappointing, to be honest. Not really disappointing. It just didn't. It was nowhere near night one. It was nowhere near night one. Main event saved the show. Didn't like the finish. Didn't like the Jey Uso involvement. I feel like that's overdone, and they've done that so many times. I understand why Reigns retained, but I understand also why people are upset about it. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this stream today?